Welcome to the Easy Odds videocast for the Premier League this weekend. Now, we've got a great bunch of games coming up, a few crackers actually. We're starting off in the Everton versus Chelsea match. Everton had an indifferent start to the season. Chelsea have had an absolutely awful start to the season, considering how much they dominated last year. Mourinho's kind of treading on thin ice a little bit, maybe. Anyway, the man Ross Casey is here to give you his opinion on all these games. He's been on fire all season.
Gone pretty well.
He's going to go get a few here as well, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. As Jake alluded to, it's been a poor start to the season for Chelsea. Chelsea were at 13-8 to win the Premier League at the start of the season, and they've drifted out to 6-1. So if you were on Chelsea, I think there's quite a few people that would probably...
6-1 is quite good though.
It's not bad. Not bad at all. We're only 4 games into the season of a 38 league season. But I actually think that Chelsea will return to form here. I'm going to go for a slightly odd choice considering how badly they have been playing. I'm actually going to go for Chelsea to win to 0 at 9-4. Chelsea have actually let in 9 goals this season so far in their 4 games, which is unheard of after last season's amazing defensive stability from them. But what exactly has happened to Chelsea, we're still not quite sure. But what we do know is that Mourinho needs to get back to improving the shape of the team. He needs to get Matic pretty much man-to-man on Barkley for this game. He needs to make sure that Barkley is not given the time and space to penetrate that back four. And I think that as long as they get a decent shape and they are parking the bus, as it was so commonly known under Jose Mourinho, then they can actually keep a clean sheet here up against an Everton team who haven't scored in any of the last 2 games. They seem to play a very pitter-patter style where they tend to pass the ball out the back and it's nice triangles, but there's no real pace to their attack, and that leaves Romelu Lukaku pretty isolated up front a lot of the time. That's a lot of the reason why he seems like he just can't be bothered a lot of the times. For a £24 million player, I personally think he has been a bit of a flop at Everton. But yeah, that's my tip for this game. I think Chelsea can return to form as long as they keep things tight at the back. Matic has a decent game and keeps Barkley quiet. Then the likes of Pedro and Hazard can finally come good and win the game for them and nick it on the break.
Yeah. What has happened in their defence? I mean, Terry's been just poor, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been poor. He missed the last match, of course, through suspension, but he's back now for this game. I actually expect him to come back into the starting lineup.
Matic is so essential in that team, isn't he?
Absolutely, and he's been pretty poor as well. So, but the international break has come at a good time for them. They've had a few weeks to get over themselves, and I'm sure that Jose Mourinho will be demanding better from them. Nice.
So Chelsea to win to 0. Right, next up, we've got the big one of the weekend. The big one of the biggest games of the season, you could say, at Old Trafford. Man United versus Liverpool. That old game.
It doesn't get much bigger than that in terms of rivalry.
Yeah.
And I've actually gone for a slightly interesting pick here in the both teams to score market, and to answer no, both teams won't score in this game. And that's because toing and throwing in this fixture just generally don't seem to happen. But both sides have suffered losses coming into this game. I think the international break would have come at a better time for them than the likes of someone such as Man City, who are absolutely flying. I can imagine that Pellegrini was cursing the international break. Yeah. But one time in the last 5 fixtures has both teams scored in this game. It seems like one team just tends not to turn up in this fixture for whatever reason. And listen to this, guys. Both teams to score. Has that ever happened in a Liverpool match this season? No. Has it happened in a Man United game? Just twice out of 6. So backing both teams not to score at 53-30 compared to both teams to score at odds on, I think is a very good value. It seems to be going up against the odds there in terms of the actual stone cold facts, and I think people just think, oh, it's Man United and it's Liverpool, so both teams will score. But if you look at this trends there, you can actually see that the trend is that both teams won't score, and that's the reason that I'm going to go for that. Both teams combined already this season have kept 7 clean sheets. They've got pretty good backlines. Take away Liverpool's last match where they just fell apart with Dejan Lovren getting back to his old self with a pretty comical
I thought mistake. He finally leveled down and sorted his game out, but
also, as something to bear in mind for backing both teams not to score in this game is that Philip Coutinho is out, and he is the creative force of this Liverpool team, because Benteke is in the Liverpool side, but they're not really playing to his style of play, whereas Coutinho was the one player that can really unlock defences. Roberto Firmino will probably come in. He's pretty unproven in the Premier League. I really rated him in the Bundesliga, but he seems to have not really taken to the Premier League that well.
Do you think he'll come good at some point?
I think he will come good at some point, but I'm not entirely sure if away at Old Trafford is the place to really do it.
Yeah.
So I think most people will be backing Man United to win here, mostly because of Coutinho being out, and also because 7 times out of 8 Liverpool have come away with nothing at Old Trafford. So I would say that is a pretty decent bet, but I would say that the better bet is, with much better value, as it isn't odds on, is both teams to score no at 53 to 50.
Good bet, definitely a good bet. Especially Rooney isn't really firing. Benteke hasn't done it that much. I mean, he scored 1 goal, hasn't he? But not.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, so that's my tip for that one, guys, and all the best with that.
Right, on to Sunday. A little bit less of an exciting game because it's involving Sunderland, but it's still a game on TV. Sunderland versus Spurs. What do you reckon?
Sunderland versus Spurs, and you do say it's not exciting, but listen to this, Jake. Sunderland have scored 12 goals this season. Can you believe it?
That is pretty exciting.
Granted, 6 of them were up against your team, Exeter. But
oh yeah, that game was ridiculous.
In a 6-3 filler in the League Cup, so it's slightly skewed.
3-3 at half time.
But still, Sunderland have scored in every single one of their games this season. They held an impressive Swansea team to a draw at the Stadium of Light earlier this season. And I see no reason why Tottenham should be odds on to win this game. Tottenham haven't won a game yet. They've only scored 2 goals in their 4 matches this season. So I think a Sunderland or draw at 19 to 20, that's almost even money for Tottenham not to win this game. It's actually a really good bet.
That's good.
I actually think that this could be a high-scoring game because both teams have improved their attack in the transfer window. And I think Harry Kane at 6 to 5 is actually a pretty good price to score any time after his 2 goals for England in the week. But Sunderland haven't lost in 5 of their last 8 matches against Spurs. And odds on, I just can't have that for this Tottenham side. I just can't see, if Kane is off form, Tottenham are off form. It's almost as simple as that. And at the moment, apart from his games at England level, he has been on form. So I think Sunderland are pretty underrated here. They're 7-2 to win the game. I'm not going to say that they're going to win the game because, as we have alluded to, they're actually not that good. But they are good enough to get draws up against the likes of Swansea, who are actually a far better team than Tottenham, in my opinion. Yeah. So I think Sunderland will draw at 19 to 20 is the best bet.
Nice. Yeah. What about Defoe to get one against his old team?
I do like to bet on players to score against their former teams, and Jermaine will probably score because he's the only player that can.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to Leicester for a bit of a Midlands derby between Leicester and Aston Villa. Bit of a lower relegation battle. I mean, Leicester have been pretty good so far this season.
Excellent,
yeah, so maybe they'll finish mid-table or something like. I mean, people were writing them off before this season even begun. But,
a lot of people back them for relegation, including our man Angus Stato Loughran, and it looks like that won't come true. But as we say, we are only four games into this season, and that could still prove good value at 4 to 1. But I think my actual tip here is going to be for Leicester to lose their first game of the season.
What?
I know Jake will hate this because he's not a fan of Aston Villa, but I think Aston Villa are really good value here at 7 to 2. Listen to this, guys. Only 9 home teams have actually won so far in the Premier League out of 40 matches. Only 9 home teams have won their matches, which is just incredible. And it's because teams such as Leicester, such as Aston Villa, are set up to play away from home on the counter-attack. Aston Villa's team has got such an amount of pace, it is unbelievable. Adama Traore, Jordan Amavi, Bakuna, Jack Grealish, Scott Sinclair, all players that can hurt you on the break. Scott Sinclair in particular is in great form. He scored 5 goals in his last 2 games. And I think that with the crowd expectancy at Leicester, where they're going to be urging that Leicester crowd to attack, that Aston Villa can soak that up and counter on the break. And I think that 7 to 2 on an Aston Villa win here is actually a really good price. They've won 2 of their last 3 matches at the King Power Stadium, and Leicester, whilst they have impressed, the expectancy is going up, and I think that they could very well be caught cold by an Aston Villa team that is set up to play away from home. They've only won one match this season, and that was away from home, because at Villa Park they're having to chase the game, and that doesn't really suit them at all. It suits them to soak up pressure and attack at pace, which they will do in this game, and I think 7-2 here is just too good to ignore.
Yeah, that's a good price, but no.
You just know.
I'm not having Villa winning a game this season. Right, Monday night fixture, big one. West Ham against Steve McLaren's Newcastle. West Ham have had a really mental start to the season, haven't they? Because they won 2-0 away at home against Arsenal, and then lost to who is it?
They've lost to Bournemouth and to Leicester at home, and then they went to Anfield and won 3-0. Which is exactly the reason why I'm going to back Newcastle in the draw no bet marker here. Newcastle away from home, backing them to win is a bit of a risk, considering that they've only scored 1 goal in their last 9 away games, which is just rubbish. But they have improved this season slightly in that they've improved their squad with Tovan in and the Dutch guy Wijnaldum. His name is. He's a really good player. I think as well with Mitrovic suspended, they're going to actually end up with 11 players on the pitch, because he's proven in his small showings in the Premier League that he's just a liability and he will get booked or sent off. But West Ham have lost both of their home games. It seems like Slaven Bilic cannot seem to figure out how to set up his team to play at home. Just like I was trying to explain with the Aston Villa team, West Ham are set up to play on the counter-attack, and they don't seem to be able to know how to do it at home. They've lost to Bournemouth, they've lost to Leicester. In the Europa League, they managed to draw at home to Aston. So that proves that, let's face it, that's a pretty poor home record. Granted, Newcastle have a pretty poor away record at the same time, but I think at 143 to 100, that's a far better value bet than backing West Ham at almost odds on, because not only will you get your stake if you win the match, but you'll get it returned if they draw the match also. So 143 to 100 on West Ham to still struggle at home, I think is a pretty decent price. Not only do they have an injury list that includes 7 players, they're also going to have to play Darren Randolph in goal again, as Adrian is playing his final match out, suspended for his kung fu kick in the opening game. That was so yeah, that's my reasoning for that, and I'm hoping that the Magpies do me good.
Yeah. When's Andy Carroll back?
When is Andy Carroll back? Let's check his Instagram.
I love him. It's one of my favourite players. That video that he uploaded of him just running and then kicking the ball in the goal from about 2 centimetres away, that was great.
Saying, I'm back.
Yeah. Anyway, so great few games there. I mean, we've got United, Liverpool, that's a massive game. So yeah, some good tips as well.
Thanks very much. Just to make sure that you caught all of those, I've got Newcastle drawn a bet at 143 to 100. I've got Aston Villa to win at 7-2. I've got Sunderland or draw at 19 to 20. Both teams to score no in the Man United game at 53 to 50. And Chelsea to win to 0 at 9 to 4, which hopefully we'll have many winners, just like last week where we were in profit thanks to my 0-0 half-time tip with Swansea v Man United at 17 to 5. And all the best for your tipping week this week. Don't forget to visit easyodds.com and download the app to get the very best prices for your accumulators. All the best.